Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. I am sitting here with another amazing guest for you today. We have with us Elaira Tickute. Elaira is a paradigm-shifting visionary, trauma-informed somatic mentor, and pioneer of gentle leadership who integrates psychology and soft power principles to empower conscious entrepreneurs in building authentic businesses aligned with their true essence and multidimensional nature. Elaira, welcome to the show.
Hi, Chris. So nice to meet you and to have a conversation with you.
And we're happy to have you here as well today. We have a lot of interesting ground that we can cover, I'm pretty sure. But
Yeah,
before but before we dig into that, we do like to have an icebreaker on the show. And the question for you today is, which cartoon character do you resonate with the most and why?
I love this icebreaker. Actually, when you told me, I went all like trolley tamale train with that investigation, and actually, I thought it got my curiosity, and I thought, what would I be? And I asked actually a few people who really know me, like my clients who've been with me for years, like, how would you describe me? Like, this cartoon character. And they told me some cartoon and like something that I've never seen. And they told me you would be a grandmother Willow from the Pocahontas. And I've never heard. Have you seen Pocahontas?
Yeah, it was one of my favorite movies as a kid, actually. Not going to go
Really?
into the
I've
whys,
never
but yeah.
heard about it. So I went to watch the movie, what is this grandmother Willow? And it was so heart touching because the grandmother Willow is a tree that shares the wisdom, like this nature, this like universal wisdom. And there is this main character, the lady that comes to the tree and talks to and shares to and asks for guidance. And I thought like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful and so touching and actually does describes me. And what also was interesting that not everybody could access that tree, could see and have a conversation. It was just, like when this main character brought the partner, he was like, oh my gosh, the tree's talking to me, because he was at certain frequency, at certain capacity and openness to receive. So it was very, very interesting because I feel like it's quite accurate. I look very young, but there's like a lot of wisdom that comes out of me often that I'm surprised myself. It's like, how do I know this? And I was born as this extrasensory being from my childhood, and I didn't know even that other people don't see the nature, don't see the universe that I see. Like it took me years to figure out that it's different. So I really love that. So thank you. That was really a gift already. This journey to explore.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, I do like the question. No, I can see Grandmother Willow. I could see that. Just from the
Yeah.
short
Oh,
conversation we had before. Yeah. Um, I don't think I'd come up with it that quickly if I were pressed to do it. I think
yeah. As I told you, I had no clue until someone told me, and I had to watch the cartoon because I had no clue what that is. And I just love that it's also like full of animals, like it's all nature around them, the birds. And I'm also that. Like I rescued 4 cats, and I have a turtle. So I'm this, like goddess nature girl who walks in with animals. They just surround me. So it's very interesting.
I like it. I like it. My favorite was always the raccoon, but I like it. So sliding into it a little bit gently here. How would you define procrastination, Elaira, and what does it mean to you personally?
I love this question. Like I know you have so many perspectives on your podcast and access point what procrastination is, but what I want to bring today and share is procrastination as perspective of nervous system. That we often look at procrastination as like something bad that we have to overcome, but I look at it as our body's protection, like our body to protect us from that doesn't have capacity for. And often procrastination comes as nervous system freeze response. So our body is at certain point of overwhelm, and more action means more overstimulation, and our body is already at the cap. And what our body tries to do is like, okay, we are trying to do inaction. We are trying to stop you from the action because we're already overwhelmed here, lady or gentleman. Let's not move. And procrastination is one of the tools where our body is just goes into this freeze response. Like freeze response in nervous system is like literally like an animalistic world, like playing dead. Like when, animal kind of pretends to be dead. So to wait till the threat goes away. And in this case, our body sees the threat of being overwhelmed and tries to freeze. So wait till overwhelm is gone and it has more capacity to move again. Then it unfreezes and procrastination is not an issue. So I think procrastination term came from the place of, I want to do things in my head, but my body is not collaborating with me. So that's why I look in procrastination not as like something, I don't believe in procrastination anymore in that perspective. I believe it's just our body trying to protect us. It's not that we are lazy. It's not that we don't have willpower. It's just more that we are at the capacity. We don't feel safe. It feels threatening. And we just, instead of trying to overpush or override it or like go into action, instead go into the body and to collaborate and support it. So that's where this gentle and soft power movement comes in, because I feel like gentleness did so much more to me and my growth in personal life and business than any pushing, any like overstretching and not collaborating and not listening to the body. So that's why I feel like procrastination for me is really just coping strategy of our body that we don't like. But all the ways that I feel our body trying to protect us and we don't like about ourselves, just protecting, like behaviors, like habits that we don't like ourselves, like including procrastination. It's just inconvenient way of our body to protect us. But our body doesn't go in the like picking like, oh, let's do this because it's nice or this is pleasant. It goes the most efficient way. And if to pick procrastination and stop you from moving and acting more, so if you really override that and if you go forward, you go to anxiety, you go to panic attack because you are overloaded. And your body says, no, let's freeze, let's build up the capacity. So yeah, it's just efficient body's way to protect you. That's what procrastination is for me.
No, I like that. It's a little bit different to what we normally have, but I like it, and I like what you say that it's not that we're lazy or broken or there's something wrong with us. Body's way of kind of protecting, or the brain's way of protecting. Not sure which way around that goes. So would you say it's almost like a disconnect maybe between the body, mind, and potentially spirit? Is it that we think we can do more than our body's telling us we can do? Like our brain is kind of trying to push to do more than what our body says we're capable of? Or is it the other way around? The body's...
Yeah, well, to make it very clear and simple and grounded, the explanation how I see it is, we have the idea, we have a desire, we have a goal, and a lot of business world is based on that. You have to have a vision, you have to have a goals and achieve them, right? And our ideas, our mental body lives in ether. There's no time, there's no space, there are no like limitation. It's like possibilities only. And our body is limited. Our body has limited capacity. And what we often do, we go into that vision of like, I need to do that. I want to implement that. I want to achieve that. And notice how already pointing there, but it's over there. It's not here. Like you already with your ideas, with your goals, with whatever you want to achieve, it's over there. And it's great to have that desire, but we shouldn't like forget to bring the body with it. Like there is one thing, you have a relationship with that desire, with that goal, with whatever task you have. And there's another thing what your body has a relationship with it, what your body has capacity for. And this is where for me, this capacity-based growth approach came through. This is what I pioneered and built up. Instead of like only mental approach and trying to kind of somehow cheat the body, I want to include a body. I want to tend the body and I want to support the body. Like, okay, you don't have capacity for this. So what do you have capacity for? Like, how can we increase that capacity so you don't feel overwhelmed? And I can share even like tips about it, like what would I do in these cases when procrastination happens. Actually, it happened today. It was so interesting because, like we all like, you have to walk the talk, you know, or you initiated and everything to ground deeper in where to lounge. So it happened to me today as well, because I have a retreat tomorrow, online retreat that I'm hosting. I have to prepare, I have to promote. And then it happened that I have to move the house, and it was all the drama with like communication, miscommunication, new owner. And for me, it's like very overwhelming. And at a certain point in the morning, it was just so much going on, and I was like complete freeze. And I notice now when my body's in the freeze, and I'm not overriding it. And I was like, okay, freeze means you don't want to act. Okay, let's not act. Let's support the body. And I even have the tracks coming out of the freeze. So I put that track for myself, you know, to support my body. So the first thing is to really like acknowledge, because it's just your body's communication. Body doesn't speak to you in words, but it speaks in sensations. So first of all, I acknowledge, like, okay, where the freeze is, what do you need? You know, what would be your natural response? Like, what do you body really want to do? And I went hiding under the blanket. I was like, I just want the world to go away. And I could already, you know, tend to that tension in the body, that overwhelm. And I could feel how my tension in the thighs, in the back, my chest was completely like bracing to like, I'm bracing for the impact, to the threat here. And I was like, okay, so how can we attune that you're safe here? There's no threat, that it's all okay. And we're supposed to have a podcast, you know, so it's like visibility, also the stretch of capacity. So I really got like this freeze, and I just started procrastinate in a way. So, but instead of judging myself, I went all that journey. And there's all psychology and even scientific part of it, of nervous system approach to it. So the first thing is really to allow the body to stay in freeze as long as it wants. Because if we push it, we know how what happens, right? The anxiety, more overwhelm. And we often even go counterintuitive, you know, like our body freeze, but then we go and watch Netflix or TV or scroll internet, which is another overstimulation for the body. So it's not really helping. But if you really attend to those bodies that are in contraction, what it needs to feel safe, and look into the parts of the body like, okay, I get it, you don't want to move, but what can you move? Is there a part in the body that once is okay to move? Are there any small actions that I have capacity for that I don't feel frozen? Like it can be like take the trash out or make a tea, you know, like tiny steps, because for our nervous system, for our brain, there's no difference if you do big thing or small thing. When you do something action, you kind of activate dopamine in your body with a sense of achievement, with a sense of like accomplished, something pleasurable. It activates also a center of pleasure. It activates the motivation. So even if you have capacity to take the trash out and you did it, you're already supporting your body to roll. Another thing is very, very important to do something pleasurable, because freeze response, it means your body is feeling threatened. It's feeling unsafe. Your nervous system feeling threatened. And pleasure is kind of antidote. And pleasure, I mean pleasure to all your senses. Like I'm so big in smell. Like my smell sense is like so the strongest sense. And I always have these things, like all these, and it immediately calms my nervous system down. But it can be like your visual, your touch, you know, like put the blanket, hug the pillow, or ask someone to hold you. Or it can be like all five senses, right? To engage in that, to show your body like, hey, it's safe. Because when it's pleasurable, it's kind of sending the signal for our nervous system. It's okay. It's safe. It's okay to be here. And, you know, there's no danger. So all these tiny tricks can do massive impact, a massive shift. That's why I love this gentle self-power movement, because gentle self-leadership, because gentleness, as I say, did so much more for me than any pushing and stretching and kind of overriding, not listening to the body. And I have quite track record there. I had 4 burnouts, so I know what I'm So yeah, that's my kind of short answer to that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It brings to mind a few things. So my question is, so if we find ourselves in that freeze, we go ahead and we try to do something else, anything else. So if we have a big list of tasks that maybe we don't know how to prioritize, maybe we just ask ourselves, okay, what do we feel capable of right now, regardless of what any of them are?
Exactly. So it can be, I love that you're bringing back to the task, because there can be few things that helpful. It can be to ask, like, what do I have capacity for? And then you can see, like, when your body opens and softens, this is the sign, like, okay, I'm okay. When your body gets overwhelmed and contracted, it's a sign like it's a no. But also it's very good to put the timer. Just tell your body, like, 10 minutes, I will work on this 10 minutes. So it's not like I need to eat all elephant in the room. And I don't mean like we need to eat elephants, but I mean, that's how it feels often when we're overwhelmed, right? Like, let's take one bite here. And we tell our body it's structured from this time to this, and it will be end. Because often our body gets overwhelmed because there's like million long list of the tasks and everything needs to happen now. And it's just too much, too soon, too fast. And this is definition of trauma response. So I have often this Pomodoro, like 20 minutes, and it really works. It really helps. I don't know how about you, but for me, it really helps.
No, I like the Pomodoro technique. I know that there are certain things that doesn't work. I mean, at least in my case, I mean, if I block out time and I only do 20 minutes and I find out that it is as bad as I thought, I don't want to do it again. So, and there are certain things that won't work for me personally, but I'm interested in your take on it because you mentioned that we should do something pleasurable. Now, to me, this is a very slippery slope. I have in the past had a very addictive personalities. What happens is okay, I'm feeling a little stressed. Let me go and do something that's going to make me unwind. But then from a neuroscience perspective, which is why I'm interested in asking you, is it better to also have that same timer set for the pleasurable things and sort of yank us back to reality and get, we get the dopamine, but then we get a tiny, tiny spike of cortisol because, the alarm went off and I'm in the middle of something pleasurable, right? Or do we just go with the flow, like you said, and go until the body's had enough of its split, which for me could be a very...
Yeah, I love the question, but I think the clarification here is, do you go for the pleasure to avoid and soothe and distract, like this bunch eating, you feel worse afterwards and more disconnected? Or do you do something pleasurable that brings more connection with yourself and more softness and more expansion? So it's very important which place you're going for. Like, for example, it can be the same activity, but it depends how you do it. That makes all the difference how it ends the result. So, for example, let's say I'm going to eat chips now or chocolate. And if you go from that unconscious guilt place and you just toughen your body, like, I shouldn't do it, and then you feel even more guilty and worse after. But if you consciously say, I feel shit now, I feel overwhelmed, and I'm going to give myself pleasure, and I will eat these chips I'm allowing myself to eat it with all my heart. Like, it's permitted. This bag of chips, you can go it all, stuff it in. But you come from this conscious, connected, intentional place. You already building the connection with your body, your connection with yourself. So the outcome usually, it's maybe the body doesn't feel very happy, but it has very different outcome how you feel. Because when you go for these soothing practices, pleasure practices from unhealthy place, it feels at the end more disconnection, more numbness, more dysregulation in the body. Like, the same goes with the movie. Like, I'm going to watch the movie because my body is in freeze. And there's difference if you're going to watch the movie because you really want to watch this movie and it gives you so much joy, you always wanted to watch it. Or you're going to watch the movie to numb yourself because you don't want to feel, you don't want to think what you want to think, you just put it and you're really just like, let's do something to distract so I don't feel what I need to feel in the moment. So you end up then more disconnected and more numb. You know the difference?
No, thank you for clarifying that for sure. And I think that, analyzing my own behavior here, it's probably more, I guess we could label it as, there's mindlessness and there's mindfulness, right? So if you have
Love that.
mindless entertainment or pleasure, leads to more disconnect and more mindlessness and less, I guess, sanity. And then if you're being mindful, then it's more of that. But how can we, from a perspective, and I'm presuming that, I know myself on some level, but I didn't for like, 30 years or whatever. But assuming that somebody isn't connected to themselves and they aren't practicing that, how can they maybe tell the difference between if they're doing something mindlessly or mindfully?
Well, sometimes you just need to try and learn the lessons. As I said, I had to have 4 burnouts to realize like it's not working this way. I'm doing something wrong. And it led me to the path where I am now. And we are conditioned like from the childhood not to listen to our bodies, to disconnect from our bodies. We don't know, how we communicate and how our body communicates. So it's just having curiosity to learn and to see, to notice and to build that relationship again. And, there's this study and multiple studies now about addictions. And they say the core issue with addictions is, and the whole core healing thing for addictions is the connection. So if you have the connection with yourself, with other, you usually don't need the addiction, because addiction is just trying to soothe that nervous system dysregulation thing to somehow decrease the stress level in the body. And connection is the medicine. So I think that's the answer. Like if you have more connection, whatever you do with yourself, if you feel more in the body, if you feel more connected to here and now, to reality you're in, not being in the past or, stuck in the turmoil or in the future anticipation, because your nervous system also doesn't separate the difference. If you think about the past or if you anticipate the future, for your body, for your nervous system, it hears all as now. It's happening now. So sometimes our thought can be very activating for our nervous system. And our body goes like, oh, we need to fight. We need to embrace the impact. So that would be my answer. I think, it's really looking into, do you have more connection or do you have more disconnection after whatever activity you do? Because that's why I don't believe like they're wrong or right things. It's just, does it support you to bring more back to yourself? Does it soften your heart or does it harden your heart? That's the way.
I like that. I like that. Thank you for sharing that. I love how you brought up the past and the future and how the body doesn't know the difference. I guess because I'm a big fan of Eckhart Tolle too. The power of now, and how he said that and extrapolating on it. We can't. The brain is a problem solver, right? So it's just going to run like Chrome with 10 million tabs open, or Safari, or whatever browser you use, right? And it can't fix something that's in the past, but it's going to have that stress response to fix it in the past. And it can't fix something in the future because, well, it's not happening right now. It hasn't happened, so we can't do anything about it either. What's your favorite method of grounding yourself or bringing yourself back into?
Yeah, so from this nervous system perspective, which I really love, it really helped me to kind of it helped me the most, like that's why I became such a big fan of nervous system work. But what I learned, when you're stuck in your loop in the mind, when we had something and then we come back and we just have a conversation we never had, or we go in loops what we should have said and what should have happened. And if you notice, it's never going anywhere. It's in the loop. And from nervous system perspective, it is actually the flight response. And flight response means you're running away from something. And in this case, you run away to the head to try to rationalize your feelings. So you're avoiding to feel what needs to be felt, actually, that ouch in my heart that happened. And instead you try to rationalize the feeling. So you're kind of running away from really feeling the feels in a way. So for me is always learning to listen to the body. That helped me to be in the body and not to put my brain into such an override, because our brain has certain specific function, but we kind of glorified our mental body so much through, last 100 years that our brain started to go override because it has to take role of the guts and the heart and the feelings and energetics, and it gets exploded. It's not its job. So what helps me really to notice when I'm too much in the head, and I'm not so much in the head anymore. Like my mind is very sharp and efficient, but when it needs to, and I notice when people too much in the head, I cannot even like connect really. Like I cannot hear, understand because I don't pick up other senses. So I just learned to really notice also like when I'm in the body, when I'm numbed, when I'm contracted, when I am, dissociated, because you can learn, you can understand the language of body if you're really curious. And what do I need to be in the body? What do I need to stay connected with myself? What do I need to feel safe in the moment? So these are usually the questions that I ask myself. And then there's like a million toolkits that you can go for in the moment. And again, from nervous system regulation perspective to ground yourself, that helps. And it's very kind of individual thing. So I cannot really tell. And it's also individual for me, moment by moment, like what I feel like I need this now.
So in your opinion, knowing this, because escapism is a big thing. I mean, guilty. I mean, I love escapism as much as the next guy, I'm sure. So you're saying that in those moments when we maybe start to feel that, we shouldn't go to the escapism. We should, even if it's uncomfortable, go back into the body to figure out how to make it safe, because that's the more, for lack of a better word, productive thing to do.
Exactly. But, sometimes, and just to be real and to be human, like sometimes it's really hard not to escape. Like all we have the capacity is just to escape, and that's okay. And I think this is where, like, I don't want to bring all this judgment, all the ways we don't like that our body is trying to cope. That's what I mean. But it's very good to bring consciousness, like, okay, I'm really escaping now. What am I escaping? And it can be like, I have so many emotions, but I don't have capacity to feel those emotions now. And then it's okay. Let yourself to escape. Let's go. Let's fill yourself, fill the cup, build the capacity so you can go and have the feels. So that's for me, this again, capacity-based growth. Like, how do we build the capacity? How do we attune capacity? How we can stretch capacity so we don't need to have these extreme body responses anymore. So we know how to tune to the body a bit earlier and to attune what it needs so it doesn't compound and doesn't have such extreme reactions in a way, and very extreme and prolonged those 4F responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So that's for me what nervous system capacity and in general capacity is. I talk a lot about nervous system capacity, but that's such an important thing, and it's such a related to procrastination.
You said something really interesting there. We do touched on capacity a lot. I'd like to go back to that in a second to see what that looks like. But you mentioned that the 4Fs, right? That the, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it seems interesting to me that a response to perhaps feeling overwhelmed would be to people please more.
It can be, it's I cannot answer it in one thing, because it can be it's not even we decide to do that. It's our body takes a lead, and it's kind of reflexology to choose which one of 4Fs needs to happen now, and it can be combo of few. So for me, it's not more important, not like per se important to pinpoint like this is the answer. But it's more to recognize the signs. Oh, I'm actually fawning now. And I am an example of this, what you're just saying, fawning and fleeing could be, okay, I'm pleasing my boss or whatever, the client, because I want to look good, because I don't feel safe that I can just be me and just say what I want and just like do what I want. So I'm performing, I'm pleasing. And the flight response can be, and then I'm overworking because I'm escaping, I'm flying away from the feelings I want to feel. And it can be different things. I'm just bringing the feelings because it's often the case. But then we build also that workaholic identity around, because we actually don't want to be intimate with ourselves, what's really going on. So it's a lot of like radical truth, but it's a good one.
You hit on something there for sure, because we tend to, well, people in general, but I know even going back to my own example, but is it really our fault? I think our society conditions us that, workaholic is a good thing. So disconnected. I mean, it goes back to what you were saying that, we are conditioned to separate. I mean, mind over body, get out of the emotions. Emotions make you weak. Emotions make you vulnerable. Emotions make you crazy, yada, yada, yada. But, I could have heard somebody saying that to me probably about 14 years ago, though, because, it was the workaholic and the high functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're right. But see, it goes back to society again, because I remember as a kid, everybody always told me, and this is true, and it's not a bad thing to say, but I have to recognize it had that effect on me, was that we don't focus on what we can't control, so we focus on what we can to get through. And my problem is that I did that for like 14 years.
Yeah. And I'm just so with you, Chris. And I wish someone told me what I know now. Also, like 10 or 20 years ago, my path would be so much different. So I feel you. I've also went all these harming ways, destructive ways, like burning myself out ways. And I just want to give you and me compassion here and everyone else. Like there's nothing wrong with you. And that's my key message, is just our body tried to cope the best we could, the best it knew, the best it had capacity for. And actually it helped you to survive. So we have to be thankful for that, because if not, we would be gone. We would be, So first of all, that's why I love this work of like bringing us, like there's nothing wrong with us, and also questioning the society normalization of this. And I fully agree with you. There's even glorification of unhealthy, dysregulated, compounded trauma responses. And some of them, like all of them, became identities for prolonged dysregulated nervous system state. So for example, this workaholism culture is glorified, like, you have to work hard, you have to work a lot, and then you're rewarded. It comes from this flight response. We often build this identity like I'm busy because actually I am running away to really feel myself, to really be intimate with myself, with all the matter that I need to, the elephant in the room. We glorify this fight response, like these fighters, these warriors, these going, breaking, whatever. And actually, it can be just prolonged fight response. And your body is crashing because it's constantly in this agitated, I'm fighting, But it needs healing. Fawning response is the most, normalized and least known. But our businesses are built, and especially some sectors are really built around it. Like look in the customer care. They are paid to do fawning response, to please people. Sometimes people shout at them, put, all kind of unpleasant trash and, words and stress. And they just have to please, even though they don't feel as safe, even though they don't want to hear that. So it's very much built on like, you have to be nice, you have to smile, you have to please and appease the other. Like if the client pays you, you have to please and appease and to meet their needs, even if they're abusing you, even if they're, sucking your soul or manipulating you. So it goes a long, long way. I have so many programs where I really highlight for people like how deep it goes, in our business culture, in our society culture. But it's actually beneficial for some, for us not to be in our full potential. It's beneficial because it also comes from this industrial revolution where we had been treated like machines, that mindset that we have to be efficient, we have to, work hard. It's all about performance. It's all about linear growth and efficiency. It's all about numbers instead of like, okay, we're humans. We are cyclically human beings. We're nature beings. We complex, it's cannot be machines. And also if you would be fully in your potential, I'm sure you would show up differently and a lot would change if you claim fully your power in your personal life, in the way you show up, in the way you do. So I think for some people, it's not really in the interest. So you do that. So, it's not good for the money for some companies.
No, I love all those different points that you hit there, and just going back to the compassion part, just one quick one too, because I think that's really important, and we need to understand that had somebody told us those things 20 years ago, right? Then we would have had a completely different trajectory, and we wouldn't be sitting here now, and we wouldn't be the people that we are today. Sort of like when you're growing a rose, sometimes you have to throw a little bit of manure on it. Stinks and it's not
Right?
great. And, but you grow and you grow better for it. So, I like to leave that and not leave that, thought sort of unfinished. But I mean, you're absolutely right. We are conditioned to people please in here. But what's interesting about that now is that we've almost flipped now. So it's almost like in businesses and stuff, customers always right is dying. And it's more about, but as everything, the pendulum, we go too far this way, we swing back, we come to
Exactly.
the
So
middle,
we
then
find
we
the
swing
balance.
too far, then the other way. So now I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed it for sure. Doctors' offices, especially nurses, dentists, a lot of retail stores, they're saying now that they won't accept, abusive behavior anymore. So, I mean, that's healthy, but I think we're swinging too far the other way now too, though, because, if you complain about something, you can be removed from a restaurant now instead of them fixing it. I was like, what? I mean, yeah, if I'm yelling at you and I'm saying, hey, you, whatever, insert your favorite swear words, what did you do? Rather than, I did order this, which is okay, but, maybe take it back and do it better. But now we've got this almost this mentality now too, at least socially in Canada. I don't know about anywhere else right now, but it was a surprise to me because I was gone for so long that now people will just take the bad service too. And it's like, wait, you can't do both. You have to, it's the middle, people, the middle.
I love that you're bringing this up because this is what I mean by soft power. And I think what you're sharing is still a journey of healing. When you like go from like, I didn't know I have rights and now like I want to have all my rights, that pendulation. And I think it's in a way healthy healing journey, though it's maybe, unpleasant or inconvenient, but we have to learn to find that balance. And for me, this is why I came to this term of soft power, because when you really anchor in your truth, when you really anchor into that balance, you don't have to say no with this, like we sometimes say no and set the boundary like a weapon. Like, how dare you, you bastard, you never treat me like that. But that's not the grounded no. That's still reactive fighting response because you don't feel powerful. But if you feel like, I know my truth, I know, like I would say, you're a blue monster. Like, you're not a blue monster. Like, I have nothing to prove. I don't have nothing to fight. I don't even need to explain to you that I'm not. It's just a no. And then the no becomes this very grounded, very soft, but very powerful. Like, no is a full sentence. When your emotional body, when your mental body, energetic, when your physical body, spiritual body, when everything is really aligned, then the no is very clear and the most powerful thing. And nobody questions, like no is a no. And when people say that, you don't mess up with them. Like, it's clear. So that's for me, this soft power is when you really anchor so deeply in yourself, in knowing yourself, in your truth, in your balance of feminine and masculine energy, in balance on your softness, but also on your discernment and your boundaries. Then you don't have to fight. You don't have to be harsh. You don't have to, in a way, push or go in a situation like I'm above you below, or now I fell below, so I have to put myself above. It's just, this is this truth. You know where you're going. You know who you are. And that's it. And that's for me, like, I feel the soft power has so much more power than any war, any conflict, any fight. It's so solid as a tree. Like, you can bring any kind of weather, I'm still standing like a tree. So that's why I love it so much.
I love that the soft power concept for sure, because at least an example of my own life, and I've explained, I've always tried to go path to least resistance. Not all the time, but because when I try to force things, you try to force a plug or something into the wall and you break it or you bend it and then it doesn't work. And then, it just doesn't get forced. But I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm crazy and I don't know. But I just feel like that when we are hard and when we go hard and when we're pushing, it's because we're going from a place of fear or from lack or from anger. Well, anger, it's all fear anyway. Um, but do you think that if we were able to step back a little and make things less urgent, that we wouldn't feel the need to be as hard or to force things as much?
Absolutely, yes. And on that one, urgency is also a trauma response. So when we in this feeling of urgent and this lack, it also comes to the trauma that we have to heal, because somewhere in the past, we didn't feel that our needs were met. In the childhood, like someone didn't give us attention, didn't give support, didn't listen to us or whatever. And then you build that trauma response like, oh, I have to push, I have to control, I have to be urgent because it's now or never, I have to grab. So it goes, really deep. I explored it very, very deep to the layers of like, what is really cause of it? So I don't believe in urgency anymore. And also, there's a healthy fear, because sometimes fear is trying to protect us. Also, our nervous system is trying to protect us from the danger. That's initially what it's built for. We just never healed our nervous system. We never came back from that agitated, dysregulated stress response. And our society structure is so built to constantly keep us in this dysregulated state. And there's nothing wrong to be in dysregulated state. There's nothing wrong to be angry and to be in a fear and not to feel safe. It's wrong when we stay there for years, because this is where we burn ourselves, burn our nervous system, because naturally, you breathe in, breathe out. You get stressed, beer jumped in front of you, but the beer's gone and you can relax. But we never relax. We never slow down. And it becomes so big and strong sometimes that feeling calm and peaceful, it's threatening for some people's nervous system because they never experienced that. I worked with people who started to talk like, do you know how safety inside feels? I was like, no, I don't remember. I don't know I never accessed that. So they pick up this dysregulated state from their parents, and then they just build it up their life from that. So they never know even how safety feels. And then safety feels as a danger because it's unfamiliar. Our body doesn't know how to deal with it. And that's why I often say we will choose familiar hell instead of unfamiliar heaven. Because at least we know how to navigate in our familiar hell. Like I know how to deal with this abusive mother or this abusive boss, so at least I know how to cope with it. But someone who treats me nice, or just receiving compliments, or just a lot of money, or like all these good things, or just inner peace, like I don't know how to deal with that because I never access it. I'm talking again from nervous system perspective. And this is where I build this capacity-based growth. Like how can we build the capacity so our nervous system feels also safe to receive the goodness, to expand, and not like to over pushing, but in the baby steps. In a way, it's a very different approach I have. It's like we have a dream, but it's more approach it not from the place of like, oh, I'm not there and how should I get there? But it's like, how can I prepare myself so I feel safe to receive that dream? So it's very different energetics, very different state of being.
I'm glad that you brought up the capacity part again, because it is something that I think would be interesting for our listeners as well. Is when you say that it looks different energetically, trying to see what would make you feel safe to be open to receiving. What does that look like when you're trying to, I guess, upgrade your capacity?
Well, we can call it upgrade. I call it expand your capacity, but then capacity thing is also very fluctuating. There are days where we can feel like we can conquer the world, and there are days where I call it burrito days, where we just wrap in the blanket and we just pity party ourselves. And it's just part of being nature being. It's like it fluctuates. But building the capacity it's very different approach that I have in a way. For me, definition of having capacity is being able to receive, hold, and handle more. So in the essence, that's what it's all about. It feels more spacious and it feels like you can handle more spectrum of life, bigger spectrum of emotions, bigger spectrum of yourself, and bigger spectrum of experiences. Like even a few years ago, if I had this kind of day that I had today, I wouldn't be able to go and have a beautiful, grounded, deep conversation at the end of it. I would be crashed. And now, no, I know how to hold myself. I know how to hold all spectrums of life. That's for me to have capacity. And this comes really very deeply from my own tipping point of experience in corporate world, where I achieved very high position. And I remember I was in Barcelona and I was in this 21st floor luxurious VIP room because I was part of management team. And I was like, this is it. I achieved it, And the room was so amazing that you could lay down in the bed and you press the button and then the curtains open up and you can see the sea view, the coastals. And I was like, this is it. This is like ultimate success. That's what I worked so long. And what happened, this would shift totally trajectory of my career. I was so damn tired. I was so numb. I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't feel anything. I just went to sleep. I was so tired. And I thought like, what's the point all of this success if I cannot feel it? If I cannot really, like, am I being lied? Like, is this how it should feel? Like, and I start to question. And this is where I went to explore how can we build more meaningful, more fulfilling success. And this is where I changed the definition of success for me is not to have more money. Money is also nice, but it's more byproduct who we become with more ability to experience life. And this is where capacity thing came in. Like, how do we build capacity to experience more life? And that it's so nuanced. And this is where I build also a very deep framework of 8 capacities that I feel like it's very essential. Like I explored in 20 years of corporate world, working in human resources with different cultures, but also in my own business. I often notice like there are, of course, so much more capacities, but these are kind of essential ones that really gives you backbone to grow. And those are very also not conventional: self-leadership, receiving capacity, relational capacity. It's a very big one. Boundaries, visibility, nervous system that I was bragging all the time, structural capacity. And I don't know which one I didn't mention, but 8, money. I didn't mention money. So yeah, so these are kind of and then I go to each of them and I look deeper, like where are the blockages? What, where capacity is not open there. And then they kind of ripple through each other and then it kind of expands. And they're also very profound and very deep. It's not like 5 boxes and you just, do a thing. It's very deep, energetic, psychological, very in-depth work with yourself.
I like that. I like those 8 capacities. They're definitely different to many other ones that I've seen out there. Elaira, this has been a really great conversation. We are coming up pretty close to the time. Is there anything you wish I would have asked but didn't ask, or anything you wish that we would have covered that we didn't cover?
No, I think we had very beautiful and really profound conversation. I'm very happy to have this chat with you.
We're definitely happy to have you here. It's been a really lovely conversation, a lot of great insights. Just before we go, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out?
So I'm a little bit unconventional as all my approach and all my language and all my movement. So I decided this year to go away from social media. So it's not a good way to reach me through social media. And I decided to be a rebel and to build my growth differently, because also I notice my capacity, my body is just contracting all the time. So the best thing is my website. It's everything there, all my programs, how to approach me, how to connect with me. And I am on my Telegram channel because that's more secure, more private. And I feel like energetics are different than traditional social media. And this is where I feel like my system just wants to share more. So this is where I'm most active. And I have newsletter. So these are and I have podcast as well myself. It's called Emergence with Elaira. How we emerge in this new paradigm, new business paradigm, and ourselves and depth of ourselves. So these are kind of the things: website, Elaira Flow Space, Telegram channel, newsletter, and podcast. These are the touch points, the best to connect.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And to our listeners, don't worry, we are going to put those in the show notes for you, so it's easy to find. Once again, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great. all our listeners, thank you again for tuning in. And, just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation and inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.